going into what we call shock therapy. I talked about last week about what shock therapy was. It's a form of social engineering through the media. And one very specific situation that's going on right now, it has been going on really for the past 40 years, is the reshaping of the black family. And it's sad because if I do my best to connect the dots to this, I can really take this back to slavery. And I can be very justified in doing so because slavery itself was a restructuring of the black family, if you really want to be honest, when we deal with Willie Lynch. Because Willie Lynch was really based on breaking slaves down to get them all to act in automatic fashion. If I can take the strongest slave, the male slave, and break him down, whether it be sexually or just physically, and I can make that slave into an example for everybody else to see, then I can get all the other slaves to get in line. Now, in terms of being more specific, and you take the black male and black woman and black man, and you switch the roles up, and you make the woman the provider, and you effeminize the man, you've now created an unnatural dichotomy in the African race, because that's what they did in the Willie Lynch letter or in the Willie Lynch process. Is you made the black woman independent. You notice black women are the only ones running around here saying that they're independent. And you make the black man dependent. You effeminize him. Because also what's happening during the beatings is, or even in the homosexual acts that slave masters did to Africans, is they made the women, the wives, and the children watch this so that they no longer can look at the man as being worthy of being a protector and a provider for his family. And so that right there in itself broke up whatever cohesive unit we even had, even though in slavery, of course, organization was broken up anyway. But that was more meticulous. It was more in your face, you know. So now you take that situation and you fast forward it to the 1970s where a schematic was created by the Rockefeller family to control the black family. You can get a specific group. When I say specific group, I'm talking about black man and black woman. And you engineer socially the black woman to be the provider. Because what you do is you make the black man absentee in the home. You have the war on drugs and et cetera, and then next thing you know, you take it from that point, and you now have her being by herself, basically taking on the masculine role and a feminine role, and so therefore she becomes what the man is supposed to be. But the problem is, let's just say this had nothing to do with this. Let's take it a step further and go into what we call shock therapy, where in society, let's just take it in terms of what we're watching on television. What we watch on television is a creation of what they want us to be. Social engineering is the method by which, when you're watching our programming, within the programming, we're shaping your mind and how we want you to act. Case in point, if I'm watching most black shows that they showed on TV for like the past 20 years was single parent homes. Rarely did you see black men and black women in a home. That's a social engineering situation because a lot of families have black male and females in the homes. But if I can show the dichotomy, then I can restructure the family just like that. It's a form of shock therapy. I can, if I'm constantly looking at something that may not be true, but if I can create it to be true, eventually I can follow along with, you may not drop your husband, but then you eventually will start thinking that this is a real situation. And so when you go further along into, again, the process of shock therapy, part of it was to restructure the family because, again, as I talked about last week, women at a certain point was an untaxed group of people. And Nicholas Rockefeller, his job was to create the liberation movement where they can tax a whole sex of women, a whole sex of people that they were not taxing, which was women. And so, in so doing, now you give that group free range over your house. Whereas now, if you look further, as I'm giving a lot of this information from a document called Final Weapons for Quiet Wars, is that a schematic was created to where the spending and the money that's generated in, let's say, the black family, because you already had, the reason why I went into the feminist movement is that a women's liberation movement is because black women attached themselves to this. And see, the women's liberation movement was also social engineering to get black women to see black men as partial the enemy of black progression, or really an enemy of just them, if you really want to take it to the next level and truly understand what was really going on. So when you look at the schematic of what was created, they already had the black man at a disadvantage because they already had that his natural counterpart, the African woman, as almost becoming an enemy to him now. And so when you're going into the schematic of what we call in tonight shock therapy, is that I can restructure your family right up under your nose. And so now you got to realize the spending part, the spend that you see now that's in the black family, most of the spending is from the black woman because she's the one who's a masculine principle now in the family reality. That's been socially engineered because now black women have created this, well, not really create, it wasn't because of them, but it was a social engineering process to see black men as being inferior and inept. Now, because of white supremacy, where every day we're getting beat down as black men in society, that's something that a lot of people begin to truly believe, that we're an inept group of people that cannot come up. We always make excuses, we play the victim and all this other stuff. Whereas if you truly look at the schematic that was created by the Rockefeller family, that remember, the spenders, the emotional spenders of our household was the women, and the logical spenders, as was already structured, was the men. This is something that's why for a long time, if a woman was to buy something without a man's guidance, she was supposed to have taken that back. But now, because of the engineering process within the family, a man in his mind is fearful to say, oh, no, sister, you got to take that back. We don't need that. Because in his mind, he feels like he's lucky to even be a part of a family now. You know, if you really want to look at it. A lot of men now are very passive and they're very beta. That's because of, again, social engineering. So now you have the black woman now who is now taking on the man role. Not only is she being the nurturer and the mother, but she's also being a protector and a provider. She's now both. So that's a social engineering process that really took over almost 200 years to basically put together so that they can completely break up the black family. And so let's take another step in terms of shock therapy. When you have all these situations that's taking place now with the Trump situations, with the situation of him being president, black people are always in perpetual fear of some white man that will come to destroy them. See, black people really think that white people are still afraid of them. Why would they need to be afraid of you when white supremacy is created to protect them and destroy you? So when you're thinking about, again, shock therapy, you're sitting down and you're standing in front of a television that's designed to create this type of boogeyman atmosphere around black people so that we can never really come together. You have to understand is that you have to look at everything with all these different arguments and debates and all these different movements and the memes that's created, the Shirley Caesar meme, the Kermit the Frog meme. All these situations are actually socially engineered to happen, that you can put things in the black population and you can get them to surround themselves around it or attach themselves to things that really isn't really who they are. But that's why every time we turn around, even with the mannequin challenge, these might seem very insignificant to you, but it's no different than immediately you have these Native Americans that are going through what they're going through. And then immediately right after that, black people are thinking, well, maybe we should help Native Americans. When just 2 months ago, you were ready to help out your own people. We went through the Philando Castile situation. We went through the Alton Sterling situation. We went through all these different multiple deaths of getting. We went through Corinne Gaines. You understand? And now you went from all these situations now to now you want to help out everybody else? I find that very strange, but I'm not, because at the end of the day, we are the most socially engineered group of people that exists in the planet, because they know how to control us, because we are subconsciously dependent upon white people for everything, from education to providing for us in terms of jobs and in terms of entertainment as well. So regardless of how much we say we want to get away from white supremacy, we always revolve ourselves back around it again, rather than just turning the television off. See, when I say shock therapy, people automatically assume that I'm talking about pinning someone into a chair and like getting electric bolts. And no, when you're watching television, that's still radiation and it's still electricity. So you're still being programmed after looking at something to see something a certain way. That's still shock therapy. You understand? So when I talk about these situations that go on, these are socially engineering to get black people to steer themselves away from black liberation. I talk about black liberation in every show that I have. Why? Because that's the only way for us to be able to move forward as a people. You cannot have black liberation when you have black people going in 1,000 different directions. You understand? It's like we have to get to a point where we turn the television off, and we are no longer dependent upon what we see to educate us and to give us a sense of direction. You understand? Shock therapy goes down into the next level of, we're going back into dating again, or just relationships. There's a lot of sisters now who, because of capitalism and what we see on the internet and what we see on television shows, are now judging black men based upon what they see in television shows and what a black man is supposed to be and how much his income is supposed to be. But we don't look at the fact that a lot of that is created. Black women are created to see black men a certain type of way. So when you go down into, let's say, for example, the most simplest form in terms of dating, you got black women that are judging black men based upon how much they make and what car that they drive. And what's really weird is like, wow, so you're this is, say, for example, I can meet a sister now, and again, this is all goes back into shock therapy because it's a social engineer. She's looking at what what type of job that I have. These are things that you see these things on dating sites. They give you an option to put how much you make a year and what type of car you drive, what your occupation is. You're already being set up to literally be almost a dollar sign rather than African spiritual systems and traditions on how we should come together, where love is supposed to come from everybody within the family. It's an axis. The relationship creates the axis that everybody on both sides of the family tree, they all come together to share within that love and to be able to create love from that situation around that specific couple. Whereas that's not the case anymore. We are judging each other based upon what society tells us to see things as. We don't know how to separate truth from reality, or fakeness and programming from reality. But now we are also on the man's side, how we judge our women. We're judging our women based upon what we see on Instagram. How big a woman's behind is, her hair, her selfies. These are still social engineered situations that go on consistently. It's crazy. The Shirley Caesar meme is still social engineering. You may not want to accept that, but it's still social engineering because they threw something out there that you did not see. You didn't see it prior, but immediately a meme is created. It's shared by thousands and thousands upon millions of people, and so now everybody now is saying the same thing. That shows those on the upper level, the upper floor, that we can throw anything out there and black people will respond to it. And we've been responding in automatic fashion for a very long time. That's the only way we can really get off this. Dr. Welsing said, we're going to have to turn the television off. That's reality. In order for us to truly move forward, we're going to have to learn to turn that television off and be able to do for self. That television is shock therapy on the level where you are constantly getting radio waves that is programming your subconscious to act a certain type of way, where you are no longer responsible for the things that you do. You are programmed to act a certain way, talk a certain way, and move a certain way, to buy certain types of food, wear certain types of clothes, respond to things a certain type of way. Even our responses to certain things are actually very odd, very strange, and they're very contrived. So we become robotic people in essence, based upon what I keep saying, shock therapy. You know, that's the whole point of it. Is you are a social experiment. That's why the process was called shock therapy. Is that I create your family. I put a voltmeter that is combined with radio waves in front of you. I program you to watch that every single day, and I can, from that programming, you live inside that cubicle. I get you to act a certain way, and you have an idea of how the world is supposed to be based upon what I show you and what I program you to see things as. You follow. Eventually, you will, even with Trump, you get so caught up in all the other stuff, from the sex scandals to his wife, how dumb she is, so you can't see and pay attention to who he's already talking to in terms of the Council of Foreign Relations that he's working for within the Trilateral Commission. You're not even thinking about that no more. You're thinking about how bad Trump is and how dumb he is. That's the part of social engineering. You know, that's still, you're still getting the therapy of the shock, as opposed to being able to look and decipher how he got in office and be able to connect the dots into the situation, which is what we have learned to not do over a period of time. 90% of your thoughts or your subconscious is based upon a programming. Most of your actions, 90% of the time, is based upon what someone else has dictated you to do. And we have to learn the solution to this is to turn the television off, and sometimes turn your phone off. Sometimes the best thing to do, if you go out to a movie, go out to an event, sometimes leave your phone at home. You know, learn to do things like that. Learn, because you're still being tracked. But these are just things that you can do to separate yourself from constantly being controlled in certain ways. You know, that's at least get to that point where you can disconnect yourself from a certain situation. But I just wanted to go over this. I'll each week I'll be going over more and more in terms of what shock therapy is. This is the first half of the definition of shock therapy and the structuring of the black family and how to control the black family's income and currency to continue to perpetuate more and more funds for the Federal Reserve, which is controlled by the Council of Foreign Relations, which is what people call the Blue Bloods or Illuminati. So I'm going to hand it back over to the people and go back into the audience and any questions or anything like that people would have. We're going to make it, this is going to be a quick one tonight, but see if anyone has any questions or comments. 1 second, family. Does anyone have any questions or any type of comments?
Yeah. Okay. Brother Ali.
What's up?
Yeah. In reference to when you were talking about the relationships and how the television how they give us, how the TV has got us thinking that what a wife and what a husband should be.
Right.
And I noticed that a lot, in my previous past, where they got caught up what the white man said, how a man's supposed to treat his wife.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nothing to do with our culture. And, the woman's supposed to cook, she's supposed to clean, she's supposed to stay home, she's supposed to have babies. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having babies. Mm-hmm. And I feel bad for a lot of our Christian black sisters. How the woman in the church is supposed to be silent and she don't supposed to say anything and all that. So they got, they really have our black woman program and how they supposed to act around their husbands. And to me, I think that's slavery, and that's just the white man way, Mm-hmm. And she don't know who she is, and she look docile, and she can't speak up or nothing like that. And a lot of the men they like that. And I'm not beating on the men, but it's vice versa. So I just wanted to elaborate a bit more on what you were saying, because I do see that a lot. The women just don't have to say so at all. And to me, I think it should be. Who said the woman's supposed to always cook? I love a man that loves to cook. Mm-hmm. He should cook, he should clean. It should be a team. It shouldn't be all on a woman, because at the end of the day, she's worn out, tired. She's run down, fat. She got a lot of health issues. And the man just sit back and, in the chair and just watch TV while she's running around. I think that's not right. But, that happens.
Yeah, if you look at, that's why I say I always refer back to slavery in terms of where black women are in terms of the house. That's why if you notice, most jobs that black women have are more corporate. Mm-hmm. And that the corporate world symbolizes the upgraded house, like the slave house. It's like that was the dream, or that was the aspiration of a lot of slaves, was to get inside of the house. But specifically black women, of course. As black men, what would be the reason unless you just want to be Uncle Tom Negro? But for the most part, it was most of the women who were having to aspire to be in the home. That's how slavery eventually evolved into that type of brothel-type, prostitution ring-type situation in the slave situations, because remember, cotton at some point, they had already created the industry that they were able to make from the Africans back in slavery. So slavery at some point began to really become more of a, that's why if you look at a movie like Django, to refer to Django, most of the plantations were more prostitution type situations. Mm-hmm. If you notice, the men it was in these type of, you still was picking cotton, you still was doing all types of things, but the men were doing more brute type situations in terms of competition, which is still slavery. But the black woman specifically was being trained to see the house as that place that she wanted to be. And that symbolizes the black woman being under the white man, which is still to this day. That's why I was talking about Dr. Neely Fuller years ago. He did an interview with Dr. Welsing, and I always refer back to this in terms of relationships. He went back to the wanted ads. He said the two main people that are constantly out there seeking, or that have become the most connected in terms of relationships, he said, ironically, has been white men and Asian women. And someone asked a question about black women. She said, well, where do you fit black women in? And he said, well, she's already under the white man, so there's no need to even have this discussion. The black woman has been under the white man for years. He said there's no need to put her under the wanted ads, because that's where she truly aspires to be. This is a programming fashion. This is something that is being created for her to want to be a part of. Why would she want to be next to the African man if she sees status on that level to aspire to be in the house or to be in the corporate world? to have money, to be not only, as I said, to be the nurturer, but to also be the provider at the same time. So now you get the double helix of a situation where there's no longer a complement. It's someone that is supposed to be being completed. Like, you're completing me, I'm completing you. Now she's having to take on both roles because, as you can see in this society, black men, for the most part, don't have jobs. They barely have anything to do, constantly walking the streets, constantly doing things like this. So there's a difference between it being reciprocity in a relationship where sometimes I cook, or most of the time I work, or you cook, sometimes you do this, where it becomes a balance, as opposed to in this society where they dictate what your roles will be in your own home.
That's right.
And
that's right.
That's something that we have to be able to pay attention to, because that's something that goes on every single day, because we judge each other based upon what we see in front of us and not based upon reality. And that's something that we have to move on from.
Right. You know what, Brother Ali, I would love for you, one day on your show to elaborate on that more, because I see, and I wanted to mention, I told you I was telling you about my business, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little bit what I'm doing. I don't want to reveal too much of it. Well, what the name of my business is Daughters of Manifestation. And I work with abused women. I've got women that has low self-esteem, who don't know who they are, who's searching, who lost. And I deal with a lot of the women out here in the world that don't know anything about Nawabi. And I like your program you had on Facebook, where I'm reaching out to people that don't know who they are, especially in dealing with women, because I come from an abusive relationship. And I would love for you to elaborate that on more, because, like I said, I'm working on that, but I have a well-rounded type of business where I'm working on that, healing, holistic, and there's a lot of other stuff that I will eventually end up telling you. But one of it is dealing with a lot of relationships, because I got women who inbox me that's going through a bad relationship. I had one lady inbox me where her man is beating her, and she's staying there, and he taught me. He told me how to wrap my hair in scarves, and, I mean, it really hurts me. You know what I'm saying? And they think they're supposed to, they think that's love. They think they're supposed to be in that type of role. And it really hurts me to see all that. So my job as a goddess and as a woman that's been through the same thing is to reach out to my sisters out there, because I love my sisters. A lot of them is going through a lot. I'm talking about the women out there in the world. Right. They going through a lot. You know what I'm saying? And that's my calling, and that's what I love doing. And it just hurts me how they feel that, like you said, the television is dictating to them what is the role and what the woman's supposed to do. And it's unrealistic. And these women is wearing their stuff out, they're getting sick. I mean, it's just sad.
Yeah, that's the problem is when you don't see it, when you see it as basically being normal, then you're more affected by it. But when you at least can see it, and you can see the fact that there's a programming going on. It's a perpetual. It's like our people are becoming animals on a hamster wheel, and we don't know how to program from that situation. That's where we're constantly being affected by it. So that's the biggest problem, is that a lot of our people it doesn't matter what gender it is. It could be male or female. A lot of our men don't realize that they're being programmed to only get involved in thug culture. That it's to look at men who are not really men. Take Lil Wayne. A lot of our men now that's within the millennials, a lot of them looked up to that type of image. So a lot of times when you walk the streets, you see miniature Lil Waynes walking around, rather than you see miniature Malcolm X's. They gave you what they wanted to give you, based upon the fact that this is who they wanted you to be. And when we don't see it from that problem, because part of it also starts in the home too, because our family was broken up, our structure was broken up, so therefore there's no guidance coming from the source, coming from the ground floor. So you leave the home, or even if you're still in the home, you're still being influenced by what you see on we call the idiot box, but you're still being programmed to still have a false sense of reality about yourself. But it just comes down to being able to see it. So I have no problem participating in helping our people. That's what I'm really about. You know, it's trying to get as much positive results for our people as possible. It's about construction. That's why I stay away from beef. I stay away from drama. I stay away from non-constructive conversations because they don't do anything. They're a waste of energy for me.
Right.
You know. Does anyone have any more questions or statements before I shut down? Yeah. I know before I shut it down, boy, I see these crackers coming. They're coming for the Instagram page. They're coming for the Facebook Non-Mind Radio page. I see them coming. I got to block them and pick them off.
Robert.
I'm here. Robert, bro.
Just chimed in a little late. But so can you explain the actual title of the call? Like, explain. Because
Shock therapy.
I just heard.
Shock therapy?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, shock therapy is a process of, it's a concept that was taken out of Science Weapons for Quiet Wars, where they had a schematic or an idea of how they wanted to restructure the black family in the 1970s. This was created by David Rockefeller from the Council of Foreign Relations, who's the head of the Trilateral Commission. And his idea was to create a whole different structure of the black family. Remember, we were reeling from integration. And then the war on drugs was also another CIA covert operation to take the man out of the home and put him in the prison system. So while he's out the home, we can come in and restructure the family. But part of it was, as they called, shock therapy. Shock therapy was the process of television, as they wanted to promote it, as radio waves that enters the subconscious to be able to deprogram and reprogram black women specifically to act a certain way. And even if you have black men in the homes, he's also being deprogrammed and reprogrammed to act a certain way in his family. So you have, for example, influences that may be cultural. They may be hip-hopish. It may not be black leadership. It could be hip-hopish. It could be standing on a corner and, because these type of concepts really are TV promoted. It's not something that we naturally do. So a lot of what we see and a lot of what we were doing is based on programming. And so the word that was used is called shock therapy. It's not shock therapy in terms of me putting tubes in your head and electrocuting you, but because of these radio waves, that's almost like microwaves, that is being sent to the subconscious mind to affect the neurons of the brain, you're getting a whole different perception or reality of your life and how you are supposed to act in automatic fashion, from commercials to television shows to different events and different, just say, news and stuff like that. Because even if you're watching the news, you're still being programmed to perceive yourself a certain type of way. So that's what I meant by what was called shock therapy, is that the concept is to, by actually moving out education from the home and replacing it with programming, I can get you to act any type of way I want to, because I'm the one that's in control of what you see. That's why when you see television shows, movies, commercials, they're all created by the same group of people, the Zionists, and they still work under the same family, which is the Rockefellers or Rothschilds. So all this stuff is still connected if you know how to connect the dots. That's why I named it the shock therapy class. Now, next week I'm going to still go over the same process, because this is a longer document. I'm just giving you a piece of what the plan was. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Now that's great. I mean, I think that the build on that was very profound. But I want to ask you a question, because I noticed you mentioned what we see through television and also what we see in our communities and the influence that's taking place. Recently, the brother Polite, he made some statements, some very controversial statements. And, for a long time, I took the speculative point of view opposed to the operative point of view in assessing some of the things that he says and does. But it seems like now what he's displaying to our community is a representation of what you're talking about right now. It's almost like he's playing both sides of the fence. I don't want to put a label on him, but with the recent statements, they say when a person shows you who they are, believe them.
Believe them, right?
So, what do you think? I mean, because I've seen, and make these controversial statements, and then I see him come back and backpedal, like with Dr. Umar, and I see how he's tried to, coming from our school of thought. He knows right from wrong, but he's trying to justify what he's representing at this particular point.
Right. Well, you're asking me what do I feel about the whole situation?
Yeah, I'm asking you, do you feel as though, because from what I'm gathering from what you're conveying about shock therapy, is that this is something that this is like a manual that they have for us, and they have different people playing their parts. And at one point, they always made allegations and statements about the brother, but now I think that the statements and the allegations that they say about him, I think he put himself in a position now where as though we have to really strongly consider that possibly he might be one of those people that is enforcing what you're talking about tonight on this call.
Looking at it personally, I've for a long. I'm just giving you my background on what I see from him, and that's the best I could do. Now, from what I saw for a long time, everything was like speculative on the situation, as you say. It's like, you look at something, so you say, well, we found. So a lot of times we had to keep making that, I had to keep making that noise because things wasn't a direct situation. It wasn't directly great, and it wasn't directly full of shit, if you get what I'm saying. Like,
exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you might, let's say, for example, his beginning in terms of being known was his debate with SETI, and whereas he comes with his perception of something. Let's say, for example, is white men still a devil, or is black people responsible for their own actions? And that became a debate, whereas it was no longer about the debate. It became debasing my father, and which is something that he should have already known was going to happen. Now, in that sense, no one really blamed him for that. But then when you have situations now where you leave New York, wherever he lived at, because he had land in New York, and then you move to Beverly Hills to be with white people, and then you turn around and make a statement, because he contradicted himself at some point. I'm just keeping it honest. Contradicted. He went, you know what I'm saying? He went from saying, he was Crip, he represents, the young black men, our people, he understands what they went through. So he's giving me the impression that he knows what's going on. So I wouldn't even see himself as being influenced in terms of, the concept of shock therapy, because he wouldn't know it better than anybody else. It's the difference between being influenced by this. Now, I can see a coon that's being influenced by shock therapy, but he's taking it to another level because you explained, he himself explained what's going on with our people. So from that explanation before on one of Sonetta's interviews, he gave me the impression that he knows what's going on. But then when he does the interview now, when he called black people, the ones in Brownsville, animals, then that led me to believe that you now see yourself above. So it's not a programming for you. In your case, it's you see yourself above these people, those people, the people that you used to live around. That's a problem. Now, for me, I decided I'm no longer on the fence about it no more, because once you make that statement, and it wasn't just him, then you had this other sister that used the term nigglets. And when you start using terms like this, something is going on in your mind where it's no longer programming. It's now consciousness is like stepping into elitism, where you see yourself above people that you once lived around, and you probably still live around them. I don't know where the sister lives at now. From what I can see, probably lives in Beverly Hills, and he's working with white people now, which is the same people that you were talking against 2 years ago in a lot of his interviews, in terms of the white man being the enemy and blah, blah, blah. Now, all of a sudden, they're not the enemy no more when you're getting paid from them. So this type of stuff is just kind of like, the only thing I can do is put it together. And it's not to hate the brother or anything like that, but it is what it is, because for a long time, because he came from the Nawapian Nation, we wanted to give him a chance after chance after chance after chance. But if a person is letting you know who they are, like you said, you got to believe them. They're letting you know who they are. And it's up to him to decide what he wants to do. It's up to him to, because you can't backpedal with something like that. You can't explain it any further. You said what you said. Obviously, this is how you feel, because according to the interview, because I looked at it twice, and
right.
The brother Sarnetta was trying to give him a way out. Like, he was like, so you mean to say he kept making the same statement, because he was trying to get him to either retract or further explain what he meant. And he just he explained it, but he said it the same way and just in a different variation. So that pretty much was a confirmation to me that, okay, the brother's on something else right now. And for me right now, I don't want to really be a part of that. He's going to have to decide on that himself, or where he really sees himself, because he's going to have to fit himself in some form somewhere. Now, if he sees himself, based upon what he's doing, he sees himself as being better, a better class. I don't want my daughter around these animals. It's like,
right.
That sounds like something that David Duke would say from the Klan.
Exactly. Why I'm asking you this question, because he on his social media, he went on to defend the statements, like basically, like you said, the backpedal, clean it up, and he was trying to come with some type of philosophical, as we say, he started moosing, making stuff up, and saying stuff like, well, yeah, we are the only people who belong to the animal kingdom who will drink milk from a calf. And then he does this little spectacle on his social media where he's going out and he's feeding homeless people, but he's feeding them Little Caesars. And this is the reason why he's explaining why he said that the people were acting like they were animals, because we were doing animalistic things. He's saying, why are we drinking milk from a cow when the woman lactates? But then, him being conscious, you're going out and taking food to homeless people, and you feeding them Little Caesars. Not even the best of the pizza. You feed them Little Caesars.
Yeah.
So, to me, I just feel like, once a person who has said that they represent us and they are for us, and they're showing some type of conflict or it's kind of convoluted, then that needs to be addressed, especially when they take a lashing out of us. You know what I'm saying? When they take a lashing, because he hurt a lot of people with that. He didn't hurt me, because I look at what you not only say, but what you Holy Tablets say you judge a person by their works and their deeds. So he can say whatever you want to say. I'm looking at what you say and what you do, and it doesn't align. It doesn't add up mathematically.
No, it doesn't. And him saying something about milk, it's kind of weird for him to say something about milk, and then you bring Little Caesars, which is filled with milk as cheese, to homeless people. So exactly where do you really stand? It's like, well, in order to backtrack and change, he's still contradicting himself in his works. And he's gonna have to, if he's gonna clean something up, he's gonna have to either apologize for what was said, but he's not apologizing. He's just trying to continue to keep explaining it, which I think is becoming a waste of time at this point. If my thing is, this is my saying. I learned this from Dr. Neely Fuller: stand by your works. Meaning that if you said it or you did it, say you said it, you feel this how you feel. Like for example, with what's our brother's name? Pastor, I forgot his name, but I think you know who I'm talking about. Pastor Ray Hagins. Ray Hagins said, yeah, when he made the statement about Mike Brown, like basically Mike Brown deserved to die, he stood by it. He didn't change, because remember he was a cop, so he saw it from a cop's perspective. So when the interviewer was like, he didn't change his statement. He didn't backtrack. He didn't backpedal. You know, he's a grown ass man. He's an elder, and he's like, yes, I said it. He should never done this. He shouldn't have went into the convenience store and stole the cigarettes. He should have. Well, basically Ray Hagins said the nigga got what he deserved, basically, and he stood by that. He never changed. He didn't backpedal. He didn't buck dance. This is what he meant. This is what I said. I said it, and what? Whereas with Polite, thing is, Polite has a following, and if you have a following, you know you do. So you don't want to upset the following, because the following is what makes you your money. That's where we got this money from. So he's trying to find a way to go back with the following so he doesn't lose his income. He's a businessman now. And the thing is, with a businessman, you're a capitalist. So you have to think like, damn, I just called these niggas animals. Well, I'm going to have to go back and try to, fix this a little bit. So let me say some stuff here and say some stuff there. Because I was, again, and I'll tell anybody that I was rocking with Polite Fee. Even when people told me that leave the nigga alone, I was like, well, let me find out more myself. Let me talk to the brother. And with this, there's not much else I can say. I can't keep trying to say something else, because then people will be like, damn, Ali. So this is what it is. He's done two things. He's backpedaled on certain instances, but at the same time, even in the backpedaling, he hasn't said, yo, I apologize for calling black people animals. Let me explain myself. This is really what I meant in the situation. And, he put it in this. Now, if you would have explained it in a schematic type way in terms of disenfranchisement, in terms of, the system and all that stuff, then I would have understood. It's like we become self-destructive to ourselves, and then I would have rocked with that part. But he didn't go into that. He didn't do. That's what in the interview, he didn't do that. He didn't, like, if he said animals, and he's like, yo, we become like animals to each other, the way the system has set us up. Then I would have rocked with that, because that makes sense. But when you just say, nah, fuck them, the animals, you could tell whatever he said, again, he reiterated his statement twice, at least 3 or 4 times. So that means that what you got is what he meant. He just realized, I guess probably several days after, like, damn, I probably lost a lot of money with the shit I said, so let me go back and try to change that shit around, and, hopefully I don't lose too many people. Because I've seen some people's comments. For the most part, people are done with them. But there's still a lot of people who are like, I'm still rocking with you, even after the animal comment. So that right there speaks volumes, because it's crazy, because we're the most abused people on the planet in terms of ourselves and everybody else, and we still find a way to basically justify the abuse, like we're almost sadomasochistic to a degree. And it's sad to see that, man, because even going back last year when he was kind of exposed in terms of the whole status correction and the money, and when that happened, I was like, damn, I wonder how he's going to recover from this. And he recovered, because these people still wanted to hear what he had to say. Nobody was like, okay, off with his head, and we, burn them at the stake, or we not going to support you no more. It was no consensus to that. And that's the thing, I think, that speaks volumes to black people, period, because there's no principle, there's no standard. Like, if you do this, this is going to happen to you. Whereas with other groups, if you do this, like even African groups, if you do this to us and you're from us, this is the consequences that's going to come from exploitation and conning. Whereas with black people, we're very inclusive in America. So even when we get disrespected and abused, we don't want to shun nobody and ostracize nobody. So when this situation, this is very indicative of that. So me, at this point, I don't see it from a social engineering standpoint. He already knows the situation, especially you coming from out of Nuwaupu. So there's no need to even put that in there. He knows exactly what's going on, and he knows exactly what he said. Now, he has to be man enough to stand by his works and what he said and deal with the consequences, because at the end of the day, he going to have to come back to black people when them crackers push his ass out. That's reality. I mean, but it's always happened. Same thing with Michael Jackson. When Michael Jackson was living it up with white women and white boys and white men, and you know, Thriller and Beat It and Bad and Dangerous, I'm this, I'm that. The moment they brought the charges out on his ass, all of a sudden he want to go get the Sharptons and say Salam Alaikum, white man's the devil, right? That's what he did, right?
Yep.
When let's keep it real, because I started off talking about, you know, with Kanye with white women. Going to OJ became not guilty. He left all of that, and he wanted to become pro-black for like at least 3 months. You know, almost joined the Nation of Islam. He started hanging out with Steve Coakley. Coakley does it. Coakley helps all black people. That's one thing I learned about Baba Coakley was he reached out to O.J. Simpson. O.J. came with his he really came with his con game, because 6 months later he's back with white women again. But the whole consensus is like, you know, that black people will always be here, but you have to realize there will be a point where we're like, fuck you. We're not gonna deal with you no more. That's what happened with OJ. It's like, dude, you went right back to white women. Even with Tiger Woods, you went right back to the white woman. Michael Jackson, you went right back to white people. So you used us for what you wanted. You went into the black community, got your lawyers, you got off, and you went right back over there with them. That's the truth. So with Polite, he's gonna have to accept the fact that once he's done taking his pictures courtside with his wives and doing all, and you know, getting the food and you know, hugging up with the Kardashians, once these crackers are done with you, he's gonna have to mosey back to the animals that he calls black people, or the black people he calls animals, excuse me. So that's reality. That's the divine reality, as you don't have to make your behind back home. That's like you coming from a big family and you got that $80,000 a year job, so now you done move from Third Ward to River Oaks, and all of a sudden you lose that job. They ain't got to bring your black ass back to Third Ward. They're going to look at you sideways like, nigga, come on now. So this is, I think really the reality is his mindset is a direct result from being around white people too goddamn much. And it happens.
I think that he's a prime case of example, you know what I'm saying, of what Doc explained, how, you know, what happened with Michael Jackson. You know what I'm saying? He got around them. He wanted to be them, and he began to alter himself. And end result, you know, they got him. You know what I'm saying? They got him. Yep. And I didn't like another thing. I didn't like how he backpedaled on Doc too. He backpedaled on Doc. 1 minute he had
Polite.
Yeah, Polite. Yeah, he backpedaled on Doc. You know what I'm saying? He asked him the question.
Backpedal on Pops.
Say it again?
What did he do to backpedal on Pops?
Because 1 minute he said that he couldn't have done it.
Right.
And he gave a strong argument on why he couldn't have done it.
Right.
And then he went back and said, well, I don't really know.
Yeah, I seen that video.
Like, I don't know if he did it or not.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Now, to me, again, that right there is that's now. It looks like you a plant. You know what I'm saying? Who sent you?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? You did all this in the name of the Father, and now all of a sudden, well, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, once you get that acceptance to the good old boys club,
yeah,
they're gonna let you do what you want to do and talk. Yeah, he literally said, I don't know. Now he said, I don't know. It's on site. You can check it out on YouTube.
Yeah, that's the one he did with my little brother Ramesses. I saw that. Yeah, and that's the thing. My thing is, however you feel, you should stick to it, to how you feel, or don't even deal with it. Just say, you know what, I don't even want to deal with it. I've said what I had to say prior. Because, I'm not polite, so I can't tell him what to say. But at the same time, when it comes to the situation now, because right now it's very delicate because, trying to do what we can to get him out. But you can't flip the script because now everything now is questionable in terms of your perception of him. So how do you see him now? Do you think, now it went from, no, he didn't do it like you said, to, well, I wasn't in his bedroom, so I can't say. So then what that would make me believe is that did you see something that make you change your mind? Did you read something to make you change your mind? You feel the way you feel, that's your business. But at the end of the day, people look at that. And because the thing is, with Polite was that one, that one Nawapian that was in Sandetta's group, because the rest of them was something else. And so now it's like you saying that with all the other people coming out saying what they're saying about him now, now it's like, wow, so where are you? Where do you really stand? Now he said it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have changed and said what he had to say. Which he can say whatever he wants to say. I'm saying it, and I'm his son. The thing is that he has to be careful. Not just him, but anyone else. Is that if you feel this way, if you, let's say 5 years ago, there's a video circulating where he was going against, Tariq Noel, back and forth. Like, no, man, you lying. You lying. My thing is, either you stay that way or just don't even deal with it.
That's
right. You know what I'm saying? Let's say if Prince, if Ramesses was to ask him a question again, and he say, well, do you feel like he did it? No, period. And next question. So you don't have to deal with the backlash of a bunch of people, thousands of people who has been rooting for you. Mm-hmm. Now they like, damn, like, how you feel, man? What's up? Because now it's looking kind of funny. Now you're around, people going to now put any conclusion together, like, is you around crackers? So now they got you going against your master teacher. What's really going on? And, people, for the most part, they want something. They wanted to find something on him. Now he's making it easier by doing certain things. And that's, hey, at this point, I was one of his supporters, and now I'm like, bruh, because when we met last year, not met, 'cause I met him back in 2008, but when I saw him at the Million Man March, I supported him and bought a book from him or whatever, because I respect him a great deal. But the coming situations from, the status correction and him owing people money to now, and then the whole interview thing, I'm like, I'm good, bro. You on your own until you get your shit right. That's how I feel. Mm-hmm. That's how I feel.
I'm just glad that he's not in the umbrella. I guess that's it.
I'm sorry, say it again.
I said I'm just glad that he's saying that he's not under the umbrella of Nuwapu.
Oh, yeah.
Why he's doing all those things. Because like you said, all of this, saying things and then stepping back, it's like he's doing a dance. He's dancing. He's dancing like a butterfly, but he ain't stinging he's floating like a butterfly, but he ain't stinging like a bee. He's doing a lot of dancing, a lot of colorful things, a lot of flowery things, and we stand firm on the facts. So I'm just glad that he's making a distinction of
yeah,
what he's
yeah.
doing. That's not what we on. So
yeah, he's appeasing. To a degree, he's trying to appease. And at 32, I'm 35, so I'm a little older than him, but still in the same generation. He's gonna have to learn to, like I said, stand by his work. If he feel like, yeah, I said that, and what, then he's gonna have to deal with it. But he can't keep, buck dancing. He's gonna have to deal with whatever he said, and stop trying to okay, let me protect my bottom line. And he's going to have to just deal with it, and it's going to come. Just accept it, because right now I think the Wapians now are pretty much they're either pushing him out in terms of association, or they're distancing themselves from him. And not just Nawapians, a lot of blacks. That's in the consciousness, because that wasn't a good thing to say. Just him as a man saying what he said was very disrespectful, and he should have been. I've seen, of course, say what he had to say, but you have to have a consensus of people say, we need to approach you in what you say. That sets a precedent that we're not going to tolerate type of disrespect of our own people. You know what I'm saying? Because it wasn't respectful to say. Bottom line. So yeah, but let me go ahead and shut it down. And like I said, next week again, I'm going to be going over that same document for a while, because it's something I noticed that very few people talk about. In terms of Patadak and actual fact, as I said before, there's other conference calls that deal with that specifically and only. And I did not want to be a clone of those, because I've done that before. And whatever they are in terms of, Patadak classes or may attack, that's their avenue. I'm going to let them do that. Because I've done, if you go on my YouTube pages, I've done, as I said, classes on the Wapan ontologies of time, tones, vibrations, and frequencies. And, they were pretty good classes, but I want to be able to deal with things that are under the radar and have been for quite some time. So, thank you all for being on the class, and I want to say Tawat and Wadu.